It's always interesting to see people in glass houses throw stones. Rachel Reeves, one of MPs behind the cutting off the winter fuel allowance for pensioners, has been exposed in a recent reveal. It's safe to say, it doesn't look good on her at all. Let's dive into the details, whilst also going over all of the latest news from up and down the country. But first, hit the like and subscribe button and join our fast-growing community. Yesterday, it was announced that British pensioners were going to be losing out on their winter fuel allowance after vote was approved through Parliament. This, of course, did cause public outrage up and down the country for obvious reasons. One of those under fire is the Chancellor, Rachel Reeves. But remember the bit we said about throwing stones whilst standing in a glass house? Well, it has been revealed Reeves has been blasted after it emerged. She billed the taxpayer thousands for her own energy bills, before announcing the decision to slash pensioners' winter fuel allowance. In the past 5 years alone, Ms. Reeves claimed £3,700 towards her energy bills, on top of her £91,346 salary and other housing expenses. This sum is 2.5 higher than how much a pensioner could have received over the same period in winter fuel. Across her whole expenses history, this rises to £4,400 with demands now emerging. She pay back the cash. Analysis by The Telegraph, published today, further reveals that in the same half-decade period, Labour MPs claimed more than £425,000 from the taxpayer in order to heat their second homes. Some of these claims are thousands a year more than a typical household spend. The paper suggests that the £425,000 is a whopping £83,000 more than the average amount spent on heating by a similar number of households over the same period. Members of Parliament are entitled to claim accommodation costs on expenses, provided they are renting the home and it is not one they own. The total cap for housing costs is £29,290 in London and £19,940, which must cover their rent and heating costs. Yesterday, Labour MPs voted en masse to back plans to strip pensioners earning as little as £11,343 of their £300 annual winter fuel allowance, while they are still able to claim thousands to help themselves. Liz Kendall, who headed up yesterday's ferocious Commons debate on the government policy, has claimed an even higher sum than the Chancellor has over the last 5 years, at £5,700. This would be enough to pay the winter fuel payments of a whopping 19 pensioners this Christmas. Senior Labour MP Liam Byrne also takes the crown for the highest energy expenses of any MP over the past 5 years, at an eye-watering £18,400. Mr. Byrne told The Telegraph this was because the energy supplier hugely overcharged and is now in the process of drawing down the very large credit balance we have with them. Meanwhile, Labour MP Yasmin Qureshi billed taxpayers for £11,800 over the period, and Naz Shah claimed £10,300. These figures are even more astonishing, given MPs typically live in 2 properties, one in London and a second in their constituency, and therefore the energy bill spend does not represent full-time usage. The revelations were met with fury on social media this afternoon, with writer and columnist Gareth Roberts asking, how can they not have realised somebody would notice this? Ex-user Break the Silence fumed, she made sure she took care of herself first, didn't she? While Christian Corley blasted, make them all pay it back. Simon Francis, of the End Fuel Poverty Coalition charity group, said, as MPs warm themselves at the public expense, the reality for pensioners will be very different this winter. If Labour MPs are so keen to save money for the Treasury, maybe they could look closer to home for savings, rather than taking from pensioners in need. John O'Connell, Chief Executive of the Taxpayers Alliance, said, taxpayers are tired of taking lectures from politicians unable to practice what they preach. Failed policies have driven up energy prices to levels that families are struggling to meet, yet MPs are insulated from the soaring costs. Our representatives should remember their voters when deciding policies. It's a disgrace, and that's all I have to say. What are your thoughts on this? Let me know in the comments. In other news, the latest ruling in a lawsuit seeking the release of Prince Harry's US visa records has been sealed from public view, but decision could yet be appealed. The case, brought by the conservative Heritage Foundation think tank in Washington, D.C., challenges the U.S. government to disclose its dossier on the Duke of Sussex under Freedom of Information laws. The think tank questioned how Prince Harry was able to move to the United States after admitting to drug use in his memoir, Spare. Court records show that on Monday, 9th September, 2 sealed orders and a sealed memorandum opinion were filed, effectively closing the case. This development suggests that the Duke's visa paperwork will likely remain private. Sealed rulings are inaccessible to the public, but may be unsealed at a later date. The Heritage Foundation could still appeal the decision. In Spare, Prince Harry admitted to taking drugs including marijuana, cocaine and psychedelic mushrooms. Visa applicants are legally required to declare drug use. Failure to do so can lead to deportation. The Department of Homeland Security, DHS, argued that visa records are personal information exempt from disclosure. However, the Heritage Foundation contended that the Duke waived his privacy rights by selling every aspect of his private life. The think tank even suggested Harry had bragged about drug use to boost book sales. The DHS insisted that confessions made in a book could not be considered proof of his behavior. John Bardo, a DHS lawyer, told the judge in February, "The book isn't sworn testimony or proof that the Duke took drugs. Saying something in a book doesn't necessarily make it true," he added. Niall Gardner, director of the Heritage Foundation's Margaret Thatcher Centre for Freedom, called this a ridiculous argument. The case has taken on political dimensions. Jane Hartley, the American ambassador to London, stated that the Duke would not be deported while Joe Biden was president. Donald Trump, meanwhile, refused to rule out deporting Prince Harry if he became president. The Heritage Foundation remains committed to pursuing the case. Samuel Dewey, a lawyer for the think tank, told The Telegraph, "We look forward to seeing the judge's decision. Plaintiffs do not have access to the order. This is part of the usual progress of an unusual case." Kyle Brosnan, chief counsel for the Oversight Project, added, "We sued to get answers to a simple question of whether the government gave Prince Harry preferential treatment when he entered the country. The Duke's office has not publicly commented on the case. When the Sussexes moved to the US, a spokesman for Prince Harry insisted that in applying for a visa, he would follow the same legal requirements as everyone else." What are your thoughts on what we discussed in today's video? Let me know down in the comments section below. If you've not yet already, make sure you do drop a like on this video and subscribe to the channel for more British content. Thank you. Take care. Goodbye.